connection by my home. And I believe some of it is about laying new cable for different internet capacity. So I think that there's a chance that that's impacted my bandwidth this evening. So hopefully I won't freeze. I did do a promo for AJFF, the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival, and luckily that went through smoothly. So I'm hoping our services will as well. As I welcome folks, I want to welcome all of you this evening. Any of our guests, thank you for joining us. Please introduce yourselves in the chat, either here or on YouTube. Give out to a shout out to our YouTube community. We're so grateful that you're joining us. If you're just discovering us this evening, please know that you're always welcome to our services at Congregation Beit Haverim. For those of you who don't know me, I am Rabbi Joshua Lesser, and tonight I have the privilege of co-leading services with our chorus director, Will Robertson. And as always, if you're joining us on Zoom, know that you're welcome to come as you are. If you want to have something to drink or you want to eat your dinner, your Shabbos dinner as we lead services, please know, feel free to do so. When it's appropriate, please join us on screen, daven and pray with us, sing with us when you can. It helps create that sense of community. I'm somebody who really invites a respectful and liberal use of the chat so that we can add some of our own perspectives and thoughts and ideas. Some richness is added both on YouTube and on Zoom to people bringing their wisdom, their Torah, their blessings. So please know that that's welcome. And with that, I think we'll begin. And we move from last week, which was such a full and abundant service, to tonight, which will be a sweet and simpler service. I'm going to invite Susan Birch to join us on screen as she will light Shabbat candles, and Will lead us in our candlelighting blessing.
Got it.
Let's gather in the light. If you want to light candles at home, please do so.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen.
Tonight, I was thinking that, some weeks can feel really challenging and draining, and that Shabbat is really the time for us to do what we can to open our hearts so that we can let them heal and feel a sense of restoration and renewal. I believe it's one of the reasons why the rabbis read the Song of Songs, to believe that even when it's cold in the middle of winter, like it has been this week, and gray, that spring is around the corner, and the trees will start blooming here in Atlanta soon, and the birds will be returning, and that a sense of loving kindness will reemerge. And so I invite us to open our hearts as we sing Dodi Li.
And this is call and response. I'll sing a line and you sing it back to me. Dodi li va'ani lo haroeh bashoshanim. Your turn. Dodi li va'ani lo haroeh bashoshanim. Dodi li va'ani lo haroeh bashoshanim. Dodi li va'ani lo haroeh bashoshanim. Dodi li va'ani lo. Dodi li va'ani lo. Dodi li va'ani lo. Dodi li va'ani lo. אני לו הרואה בשושנים. דודי לי ואני לו הרואה בשושנים. דודי לי ואני לו הרואה בשושנים. We turn to page 13 for Shalom Aleichem. It's also in the chat, or it will be. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech Malachi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech Malachi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni v'shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech Malachi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem leshalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech Malachi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Josh, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm still muted. I didn't click hard enough. So I just want to invite us to take a moment and move into our breakout rooms. So we have a chance to meet one another, greet one another, wish each other a good Shabbos. This week's Torah portion is Parshat Yitro. We have experienced Exodus last week, and this week we have the beginnings of receiving the Ten Commandments and Revelation. And so after you do introductions, or if you already know each other, a warm round of wishing each other a good Shabbos, I'm going to invite somebody who might be a facilitator to make sure everybody has an opportunity to introduce themselves and maybe share, thinking about that this week's Torah portion is about Revelation, a piece of wisdom that you either discovered from your own thinking this week or that you came across another way. But share a little bit of wisdom that has guided you through this week. We'll spend a few minutes with one another, and then we'll come back and we will join together in continuing our Psalms. And folks on YouTube, feel free to put in the chat any wisdom that you want as we take a few minutes, and you'll pretty much just see us move into a black screen. But please don't go away. We certainly value you and want to make sure that you're here for the whole service. Well, I know that not everybody in our room got to share their wisdom. Someone was cut off right as they were about to give us the key to enlightenment. So if you didn't get to share your wisdom or you want to share your wisdom with everybody, please feel free to put it in the chat. Feeling like we needed a little bit of uplift this week, I've invited Will to kind of offer a more contemporary version of Song of Songs, perhaps, with one of our favorites of his, Beauty.
Thank you, Josh. It was Tamara was in our room, and she's in San Antonio, and wanted to say hi to Texas. I'm from Houston originally, and as I'm thinking about what the weather is probably like down there, it's a good bit warmer even from where we are here. The days are starting to get longer. It's starting to warm up here a little bit, so we may still have a ways to go before we can really be together again, but at least we can be together here, and we can see the world start to bloom here. We should get our first dogwoods here pretty shortly, I guess. So sing with me if you know this. Everywhere, everywhere there is beauty, and I see beauty. Everywhere that I go, lift me up from despair. Come and soothe me, reach right through me. Hold me harder than I've ever known. Everywhere, everywhere there is beauty, and I see beauty. Everywhere that I go, lift me up from despair. Come and soothe me, reach right through me. Hold me harder than I've ever known. Seems like the cost of life is so much higher than what we had saved. A sea of frost and ice is trying to bury us under its weight. Just look around. Why is it that you're so afraid? Everywhere, everywhere there is beauty, and I see beauty. Everywhere that I go, lift me up from despair. Come and soothe me, reach right through me. Hold me harder than I've ever known. A few dozen years to hang around and take things past where they were when we came. Some fly away, some run aground, some spin in circles, but if it's all the same, I'd rather walk. Will you help me find flowers on the way? Everywhere, everywhere there is beauty, and I see beauty. Everywhere that I go, lift me up from despair. Come and soothe me, reach right through me. Hold me harder than I've ever known. Everywhere there is beauty, and I see beauty. Everywhere that I go, lift me up from despair. Come and soothe me, reach right through me. Hold me harder than I've ever known.
We continue with Psalm Yiram Hayam on page 33.
Yiram Hayam Umelo, Yiram Hayam Umelo, Tevel ve'yoshveva, Yiram Hayam Umelo, Yiram Hayam Umelo, Yiram hayam umelo Tevel veyoshveva Yiram hayam umelo Neharot yimcha uchaf Yai lai 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 Yachad harim yiranenu Yai lai 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 Neharot yimcha uchaf Yai lai 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 Yachad harim yiranenu Yiram hayam umelo Yiram hayam umelo Tevel veyoshveva Yiram hayam umelo Josh, you're muted.
I keep clicking and it doesn't unmute. Sorry. We come to this moment where mystics had us warm up to really be in this place, to be as open-hearted as possible as we sing Lecha Dodi. And so just want to invite us just to maybe even take a breath and see what obstacles we may need to breathe out to be able to receive the love that we have for one another. Even in the challenges that we've experienced this week, this month, this life. And just invite the sense of the boundless love of the Creator of all that we recognize as the beloved that we greet when we sing these words. Please join us.
Lecha dodi ligrat kala Pene Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi ligrat kala Pene Shabbat nekabela Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad Yishmi'anu el hamyuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad L'shemo tiferet ve'litila Lecha dodi likrat kala Pene Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi likrat kala Pene Shabbat nekabela Hitoreri Ki va'orech humi uri shir daberi Kevod Adonai alayik nigla Lecha dodi likrat kala Pene Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi likrat kala Pene Shabbat nekabela Yamin u'smol tifrotzi V'et Adonai taritzi Al yadish ben parzi V'nismecha v'nagila Lecha dodi likrat kala Pene Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi likrat kala Pene Shabbat nekabela. Please rise in body or spirit. Boi v'shalom ateret bala Gam besimcha uv'tzola Toch emunei am segula Boi chala Lecha dodi likrat kala Pene Shabbat nekabela Lecha dodi likrat kala Pene Shabbat nekabela.
In 209, we find Tov Lahodot, an opportunity for us to ground our Shabbat in a sense of gratitude. And so invite us before we sing together on 209, our Shabbat psalm, to take a moment. You may even want to list in the chat things that arrived this week, things that you accomplished, things that occurred just by grace that you are grateful for and want to bring into your Shabbat experience and perhaps share with all of us.
Tov lehodot l'Adonai uzamer leshimcha elyon lagid baboker chazdecha be'emunatecha balelot. Ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la ya la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la ya la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la ya la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la ya la, ya la la la. Tov lehodot l'Adonai uzamer leshimcha elyon lagid baboker chazdecha ve'emunatecha balelot.
I just thought, not to mar our Shabbos feeling, but I just came to mind that I'm very grateful I had the opportunity today to work with Truah, which is the rabbinic call to human rights, to pen an op-ed that will likely be placed in the forward against the anti-Semitism that is coming out of the 14th district here in Georgia. And it will be a pretty profound attack on anti-Semitism and insisting on a democracy and a country that is safe for all Jews and our loved ones. So grateful for that opportunity, and I'll share it with you when it occurs, when it's in print. I think Rebecca Grapevine's comment reminded me of that, and so grateful to read our support and excitement over her publishing as well. So we, again, rise and body your spirits as we begin to transition from Kabbalat Shabbat to Ma'ariv. We find the Chatzi Kaddish on page 245. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, Bialma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chai echon v'yom echon, Uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, Bagala, Bagala, Uvizmahan kahariv, Vimeru, Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbo mevorach, Leolam leom me'amaya, Yiparach. Yiparach v'yishtabach, V'yipar v'trumam v'yitnasei, V'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal, Shmir kudesha brichu. Li'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushmechata v'nechemata, Da'amihiran be'alma, V'meru, Amen. So we continue with this call and response of the Baruch Hu, where we recognize that the blessing we offer in the world is also the blessing we receive, as it creates a cycle that we want to continue to perpetuate and to acknowledge. Please join me on page 247. Ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da. Baruchu et Adonai, HaMevorach, HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai, HaMevorach leolam vaed.
Baruch Adonai, HaMevorach leolam vaed. So it is found on both of those page numbers. I just happened to be in the morning service. Thank you, Sharon, for noting that. But both of those pages will render the Baruch Hu for you. I will get back into the Ma'ariv service, and I'm going to invite us to move into Ma'ariv Aravim Asher Bivaro. We'll start with an alternative reading, I Look Up to the Sky, a poem by Shmuel Hanagid, and I'd like to invite Nancy Kreisman to offer this reading.
All right, can you hear me now? Sorry about that. I look up to the sky and down to the earth and the things that creep there, and I consider in my heart how their creation was planned with wisdom in every detail. See, the heavens above, like a tent, constructed with loops and with hooks, and the moon with its stars like a shepherdess, setting her sheep into the reeds. The moon itself among the clouds, like a ship sailing under its banners. The cloud like a child in her garden, moving and watering the myrtle trees, the dew mist, a woman shaking, drops from her hair to the ground, the inhabitants, like an animal, stretched to rest. Their palaces are their stables, and all flee from the fear of death, like a dove pursued by the falcon. And these are compared at the end to a plate, which is smashed into innumerable shards.
Amen. Thank you, Nancy. Please join me on page 59 for the Chatima. Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdihil ben yom uvein laila, Adonai tzvaot shemo, El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv aravim. Amen. We chant Ahavat Olam on page 63. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, b'shachveinu v'kumeinu, nasiach bechukecha. V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'v'mitzvotecha, le'olam va'ed. Ki heim chayenu, v'orech yameinu, v'orech yameinu, u'vahem nehege, yomam v'layla, yomam v'layla. V'yavarcha lo tatzur mimenu olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Amen. Take a moment to close our eyes and to center ourselves as we find the Shema on page 65 and we chant these words together. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בהם בשבתך בביתך, ובלבתך בדרך, ושפך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. We continue with the Micha Mocha, the prayer that reminds us of the Exodus that we read in the Torah last week and invites us to commit to our sense of justice and liberty in the world. We do this as a call and response. Please join us.
מי כמוך,
מי כמוך,
באלים אדוני,
באלים אדוני,
מי כמוך,
מי כמוך,
נדר בקודש,
נדר בקודש,
נורא,
נורא,
תהילות,
תהילות,
עושה,
עושה,
פלא, מלכותך,
מלכותך,
ראו בניך,
ראו בניך,
בוקי הים,
בוקי הים,
לפני משה ומרים,
לפני משה ומרים,
זה לי,
זה לי,
אנו ואמרו,
אנו ואמרו,
אדוני ימלוך,
אדוני ימלוך,
לעולם ועד.
לעולם ועד.
ברוך,
ברוך,
אתה אדוני,
אתה אדוני,
גל,
גל,
ישראל.
Israel. We move into our evening prayer, the Hashkivenu, which you'll find on page 80 and 81. Alliteration you'll find on page 83.
ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ותקננו בעצה טובה מלפניך, והושיענו. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ותקננו בעצה טובה מלפניך והושיענו ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך ותקננו בעצה טובה מלפניך והושיענו.
Friends, a song that has been particularly important to us that we introduced at High Holy Days was this teaching by Nachman of Bratslav, which is, if you believe that you can break it, you must also believe you can fix it. And for me, it has been incredibly instructive to understand that who we are is essentially not broken, but that when we find ourselves in times where life feels broken, that to have the recollection and the understanding that we have some capacity to bring healing and wholeness is incredibly restorative. It may not look like we have to do it all alone. It may mean that we reach out to one another for that and that strength, but it means that fundamentally there is something whole and divine in each of us. And I believe that as this pandemic continues and we find a different sense of agitation or isolation or how we feel disconnected, that we have to hold on to these teachings that what feels broken right now will come by our attention to bringing some wholeness to it. And so I found this version different than the one that we've been doing, which brings a lot of energy to it, that really invites a more thoughtful reflection. And so after Will introduces this new version that I hope becomes one of our spiritual go-tos in our community, that we might sit in some silence as our alternative Amidah this evening to really think about where we need to bring some of our healing and wholeness into our own lives and into our community. You'll find the words in the chat.
אם אתה מאמין שיכולים לקלקל, תאמין שיכולים לתקן. אם אתה מאמין שיכולים לקלקל, תאמין שיכולים לתקן. If you believe you can break it, you must believe you can fix it. If you believe you can break it, you must believe you can fix it. In this perfection, the truth, there is no shame, there is no blame. In this forgiveness, the truth, you are well, you are holy. In this perfection, the truth, there is no shame, there is no blame. In this forgiveness, the truth, you are well, you are holy. אם אתה מאמין שיכולים לקלקל, תאמין שיכולים לתקן. אם אתה מאמין שיכולים לקלקל, תאמין שיכולים לתקן. If you believe in your lostness, you must believe you are found. If you believe
In your lostness, you must believe in this moment. In this perfection, the truth, there is no shame, there is no blame. In this forgiveness, the truth, you are well, you are holy. In this perfection, the truth, there is no shame and no blame. In this forgiveness, the truth, you are well, you are holy. We are well, we are holy. All is well, all is holy.
So the version that Will beautifully sang and played is by a singer-songwriter named Ari Moshe Wolf. And he expands on the teaching, which I think is quite beautiful, but I think it's deeply steeped and rooted in Reb Nachman of Bratslaw's worldview, which he taught that when we are feeling lost or broken or desolate, that we must start by finding one small point of light. And if we can do that, we can continue to expand that sense of light. And that in some ways is our key to moving towards finding wholeness. And thinking of wholeness, we pray a refuah shlema, the process of healing to those in our community who are ailing of body, mind, or spirit. I invite you to put their names in the chat now. For the Blue Dove Foundation, which is one of Atlanta's Jewish mental wellness organizations, Nancy Kreisman wrote a beautiful Misha Berach for healing that I'm going to invite her to read after I share the names of our community. Richard Adler, Marilyn Pankin, Nancy Smith, Maureen Kalmunson, Richard Cohen, Jenny Williams Cohen, Mario Eugene Hudson II, Lois Birch, Andrea Finn and Bev Corfin, Uli Sprick, Ellie Emmerich Hart, Chai and Billy Nach, Claude Baruch, Jordan and Jamie Schwartz, Tesla Queen, Janice Blackman, Beth Ann Budicant, Nancy Davis, Megan Radent, Janice Roger, Pilar Barclay, the Batan Snook family, the Levin family, the Kolbs, Reckelman family, Grady, Floyd, Adair, Eyal Schechter, Audrey Galix, Faith Russler, Dolly Wax, Esther Myers, Joel Barfield, Ellen Leary, Monique Gauthier, Julio Quintana, Jacob Gutman, Pat Levy, and Rona Crozy. Nancy, if you'll read the Misha Berach that you wrote.
To the one who blessed our ancestors and the one who blesses all beings here on earth, bless all those who are suffering the grief of someone they loved. May they find solace in their memory, and may their love find a resting place in their hearts. Bless all those who are struggling with the death of someone with whom they had a difficult relationship. May they find compassion for themselves and renewal of spirit. May they have patience and strength, as grief can come in waves throughout their lives. May they find the courage to share their grief with others, no matter how many years have gone by. While they can be shattered by loss, they can be healed by love from others. Sacred One, Help them find ways to open their hearts to love and hope. Bless all those who are grieving, for it is an honor to have lived. Make both life and death as a blessing. Amen.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm going to invite Will to lead us in a traditional Mishaberach for us.
It's a call and response as well.
Mishaberach Avotenu Makor HaChaim Leimotenu Hu Yevarech Ve'yirafeh Et HaCholim Et HaCholim El Narefanala El Narefanala El Narefanalo El Narefanalo El Narefanala El Narefanalo El Narefanalanu El Narefanali.
Defund Moses, innovating our justice system. I invite us to take a moment to prepare ourselves for our Devar Torah this evening. This week's Torah portion could be described as our Jewish law and order portion. After all, it contains the Ten Commandments, a part of the Torah that still has such a substantial impact on the world today. But this week's portion, Yitro, starts with Moses' father-in-law of the same name and his innovation to Moses' way of doing justice. Scholars credit this text as impacting the current way that our court system operates. As the Israelites adjusted to their life of freedom, one might assume that anarchy had broken out without any clear rules of engagement or treating one another. Having been former slaves, they did not necessarily have the kinds of guidance of living in civil society. And so Moses essentially established himself as sheriff, judge, and jury, all in one. It was as if he served as a one-man justice system, with perhaps God as Moses' supervising district attorney. Yitro, his father-in-law, arrived with his daughter, Moses' wife, Zipporah, and their whole family. When they see each other, they embrace and rejoice, and they feasted in tribute to God's power and the freedom of the Israelites. But the following day, Yitro witnesses Moses at work. Moses, it says in the text, sat as magistrate among the people, while the people stood about Moses from morning until evening. And when Moses' father-in-law saw how much he had to do for the people, he said, "What is this thing that you are doing to the people? Why do you act alone, while all the people stand about, waiting from morning until evening?" Exodus 18:13-14. Yitro instantly understood, regardless of Moses' intention, that by seizing so much control, Moses was harming the people and himself. So Jethro spoke up, speaking truth to power, and asked Moses, "What is this thing that you are doing to the people?" Moses replied to his father-in-law, "It's because the people come to me to inquire to God. When they have a dispute, it comes before me, and I'm the one who decides, one person and then another, and I make known the laws and the teachings of Adonai. But Moses' father-in-law took a risk and challenged this approach, saying in the text, "This thing that you are doing is not right. You will surely wear yourself out and these people as well, for the task is too heavy for you. You must not, cannot do it alone." And so he encouraged Moses to loosen his grip and enlist other skilled and wise people to set up a system of courts that loosely resemble our court system today. And thus, Yitro assisted in making a substantial innovation to what would have been a totalitarian judicial system. And so this ancient text gives me hope that even in our time, that we have an example of the necessity to innovate our systems of justice when one person or one group of people are holding too much power, especially when that holding of power results in harm. I believe that is true of our courts, and I believe that is true of our policing. And I believe it's not only bad for us as the people, but as Yitro said of Moses, it is bad for our judges and it is bad for our police. I believe a text like this can support better conversations about what has become known as defunding the police. So if we were to think about defunding Moses, we can think about defunding the police. And I believe that too many of us have believed that policing as the primary solving problems is the only way. And that instead, we need to think of creative innovations, of recognizing that just because we thought something was supposed to work, we have to understand of all the harm that we have seen in front of us over the years, that this system is not working for us or for the police themselves. And so while some people have let the languaging of defund stop their creative process, what we are really talking about is understanding that our current system is not good for us as a country, and that we must examine our old and false assumptions that empowering and weaponizing police is the only solution, because that is what we've always known. Imagine our people's story if Moses had remained as sheriff, judge, and jury. We would have likely had another Pharaoh on our hands. So much power is corrupting, damaging, compromising, and it corrodes both the powerful and the powerless. I am an enthusiastic advocate for creative solutions. It is why I followed with interest and advocated years ago for Atlanta's pre-arrest diversion at City Hall, and served on the task force to help implement it. Pre-arrest diversion is a measure to bring other solutions to the table than the judicial system. In situations where there are drugs or loitering or solicitation, other interventions are offered, like rehabilitation, social services, and job training. It is of interest to me that just this week, the pre-arrest diversion folks have called and asked if they could be in conversation of ways that we as a community might further the work that they're doing. It is time for us to think of creative solutions. Recently, in a very different vein, I was listening to my favorite new podcast, Criminal, put together by Phoebe Judge, and my mind stirred with even more possibility and the positive unintended consequences of creative solution at this one episode. Husband and wife Dan and Lou Stevenson have lived in Oakland, California in a small home for many years. Dan's philosophy on living in a city like Oakland is pretty cynical. Essentially, he says, you have to expect to be held up or robbed from time to time if you're going to live in the city. When it comes to calling the police, Dan professed that for decades now, he refrains from calling them because, in his own words, too often they escalate problems and often lead neighborhoods worse off than before they came. He said with some laughter, I actually trust some drug dealers more before than I trust the police to keep the order. In the neighborhood that they've lived in, they've had to contend not only with drug dealers, but sex workers for years until something unexpected happened when they took some matters into their own creative hands. One day, the city came out and put in a grassy embankment to curb speeding through their neighborhood in the street right outside their home. This small patch of land soon became the unlawful dumping ground for the neighborhood. When people moved, they would pile their unwanted belongings or dump hazardous trash right on this small patch of land. And because it was so small, it would stack almost 9 to 10 feet high of garbage. It drove Dan and Lou crazy. And so after debating what they should do, Dan decided to go to the Ace Hardware store, and he bought a garden concrete Buddha. Not because he or Lou were Buddhist, but because, in his words, Buddha was neutral. After figuring out a way to prevent the Buddha from being stolen, he permanently affixed the Buddha on a slab of concrete that he set in the embankment, figuring it was better to ask for forgiveness than for permission. The dumping stopped, and weeks later, something else even more interesting began to occur. Someone came by overnight, painting the Buddha carefully, all white. Then people began to leave oranges or a pear. Some people left coins. Then the Buddha was painted gold, and the nearby Vietnamese community came for morning prayers and for meditation. And they built a small roof, almost a tiny temple that one would have to duck underneath and kneel to be able to say prayers. And then they put up other Buddhist icons. On special feast days, people would knock on the Stevensons' door, and they would bring over an abundance of food and drink, offering appreciation and thank you. Dozens of people would come by to pay respects to this unintentional shrine. Never in their imagination would something like this have occurred to the Stevensons. But the other impact that this Buddha caused, they also would never have predicted, because more interestingly, in a relatively short period of time, crime reduced dramatically by over 82%, according to city statistics. What an incredible unintended consequence. And I believe that this speaks to how creative changes could reduce the need for the role of police as we have imagined it. And no, I'm not saying that the answer is to stick a Buddha on it, the way that a lot of crafters stick birds on everything. But I do advocate for unusual answers, for trying things that we haven't tried before, answers that involve centering people and community, and even appealing, dare I say, to the spiritual good. So let me wind down now by pointing out 3 ways that communities are implementing alternatives and innovations to the justice system. And the truth is, I could have come up with many more. These are just 3 that are, I believe, prevalent and I'm interested in. One is creating specialized traffic forces. When we look at where many of our violent incidents with police occur, police civilian events happen on the road. By and large, it is the majority. And there really is no justifiable reason why armed police officers should be in charge of road safety. Not only would an alternative force save countless lives, it is incredibly expensive for armed officers to do this work. Some cities are making these adjustments, and in New Orleans even, there's a group of trained citizens to be reporters when accidents occur where there are no injuries and there's no suspicion of alcohol or drug use. Another innovative idea is trained mediators or trained community chaplains are being called in for minor disputes. So too often, without the skills of mediating or a human-centered approach, minor arguments escalate to violence. We have seen how the presence of some police also contribute to this just by their very presence and their lack of training. There's a large number of calls to 911 that are not true emergencies, but are about minor issues such as noise violations, pets misbehaving, trespassing, rowdy behavior, or familiar or relational arguments. And I'm not talking about domestic violence. I am talking about simple arguments. And so many European countries have created trained teams of community safety professionals and organizations here in the United States like Cure Violence and Advance Peace, which employ violence interrupters or peacemakers from within local communities to mediate conflicts before they escalate to the levels of violence. It is why during this election that there were election chaplains. I'd never seen that before. But there were those of us who were trained to go out and to ensure that people were able to vote safely. And I believe that could happen in other ways as well. Cities like Atlanta are experimenting with a special phone line, 311, to mobilize some of these services instead of calling upon the police. And lastly, for tonight, creating a mobile crisis response unit is another way that people are getting innovative. Too often, police find themselves in situations that better resemble a circumstance for a well-trained social worker. Police are called to intervene with people who are homeless, intoxicated, substance abusers, or suffering from mental illness. Rarely are police trained with these kinds of skills. One program called Kahoot is a collaboration between a mental health community center called the White Bird Clinic, see, put a bird on it, and the police out of a few cities in Oregon. Rather than dispatch police officers to every 911 call that is made, nearly a fifth of the calls, usually involving the populations I mentioned, the homeless or the mentally ill, are directed to a special team of extensively trained mental health counseling, social work, and crisis de-escalation professionals who are not weaponized, but rather come with the tools to be able to make a difference in a nonviolent way in these situations. Friends, there are many more creative ideas that people are using to better impact our justice system. Let us not let the language of defunding scare us from witnessing the Jethro-like ways that what has been happening has not been good for the police or for the people. And instead, let us let go of some of our preconceived notions and support creative solutions to a problem that is truly killing all of us. Shabbat Shalom. I'd like to invite Amy Price to give some of our announcements.
Thanks so much, Rabbi Josh, for your words. Is always a lot to think about there, for sure. Shabbat Shalom and welcome, everyone. It's so wonderful to have everyone here at services. I know that even being virtually, it's nice to be able to tap in once a week and see so many people. You are invited to our offerings in the coming week. Join us noon on Monday, February 8th for Lunch and Learn with Rabbi G. Next week's services on Friday, February 12th. Join us at 6:45 for Shabbat service with a devar given by guest speaker Renee Azarwatham, Senior Director of Strategy and Advocacy at the Bridges Faith Initiative. Join Rabbi G on Saturday, February 13th at 10 for a lively discussion about Esther at Torah Study. You are invited, no Torah study experience required. The Food Security Project is looking for fresh faces to deliver food on Friday afternoons. It's an easy and meaningful way to make a big difference. CBH supports 15 families every week. I know that my family has been involved, and it's such a meaningful way to do something during this time. Please email Rebecca at ourgrapevine@gmail.com to sign up, or if you didn't catch the email, you can look on the website, or also just message Rebecca here as well. Maybe Rebecca, you can put in a message. As a reminder,
and she did put in the chat.
For the CBH Chorus Band and Strings is now available for purchase. Please visit our website to pick up a copy. If you are an artist of any sort, be it visual, performing, or other, please consider creating a piece of art for CBH Red Thread Art Show. You can find details in bait mail. Be sure to save the date for CBH's Oh So Gay Purim Cabaret, Friday, February 26th at 7 p.m. Tickets for CBH First Purim raffle will also be going on sale soon, so be on the lookout and get ready to win. As a reminder, if you need to contact CBH staff, please do so via their CBH emails. As always, a full view of our offerings can be on the CBH calendar on our website. Please take a look there and under streaming services and find out all of our selections. Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend and coming week.
Thank you so much, Amy. We're going to conclude our service with the Aleinu, which I believe we'll find on page 121. I was muted. Sorry, you didn't hear any of that. We're going to conclude our service. We turn to the Aleinu, which I believe we will find on page 121. Turn with me. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liyotzeh breshit, shenatan lanu torah hatemet, v'chaye olam nata betochenu, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Hakatuv b'toratecha Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed v'nehemar v'haya Adonai le'melech ol kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. We find the prayer for the end of hiding in the chat. Please join with me. As LGBTQ Jews, we are aware of the loss of integrity we suffer due to the pressures of the larger society. We often feel forced into a dishonest presentation of ourselves to ourselves and others, the LGBTQ individuals who feel they must pretend to be something that they are not, the Jews who feel they must be alienated from their tradition and community to win larger acceptance. Both are victims of a theft of identity and integrity committed by the sexual, gender-identifying, or religious majority. Creator of the universe, we ask that our hiding draw to an end, that we no longer feel we have to pretend, to promise falsely, to renounce ourselves, and that our fullest creative expression as Jews and as lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual, and queer people be among the blessings you bestow upon us. Amen. As we say Mourner's Kaddish this evening, I invite those who would like to join me to rise in body or spirit on page 131. I invite you to add the names in the chat as well. As we say Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be a blessing. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divrach kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, bagala uv'izman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam omei amaya, yiparach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, Vitadar, Vitalev, Vitalal, Shmedekutsha, Brichu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbachata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlam araba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, V'imru, amen. And so I offer my comfort to all those who are mourning and grieving. And I invite us to turn to the last words of that prayer, this prayer that also reminds us to feel connected and a part of the fabric of life, that we ask that the one who creates peace in the heights create peace for all of Israel, all of us, and for the entire world. If you want to dance us out with Will as he leads us in singing Oseh Shalom, please feel free to do so. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן. Hey, la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן. Let me hear ya. Hey, la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Good Shabbos. Shabbat Shalom. Take care, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Great week.
Shabbat Shalom.
Adios.